Hello, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Rixie, one of the creators here on the Collector's Maze Network. My guest today is an actress, voice actress, singer, and songwriter. She was the lead in the Los Angeles production of Annie. You can see her playing alongside Richard Hatch in the 80s thriller The Party Line, as well as several other films. But she's probably best known as the voice of the strong-willed and spunky Peppermint Patty from Charles Schulz's famous Peanuts universe. Everyone, Patricia Peppermint Patty Patts. Man, Patricia, welcome to the maze.
Thank you so much. I loved your intro. That was great.
Well,
Most people don't know about Party Line, so.
I think one of the things I love most is digging through and finding that, that movie that just really appeals to me. It's like that, an 80s thriller. I've got to know more about that. So I'm definitely going to talk about that. I have a few questions there, but
Excellent.
So first of all, thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk with us.
My pleasure.
I'm excited to hear all about, the life that you are leading. I understand that you've got a ton of stuff going on.
I do. It's kind of crazy.
You started in this business, at a pretty young age, right?
So the first time I was on a stage, I was 3.
Holy cow.
I was doing theater show after show after show by the time I was 6. I think I was 8 when I went professional with a Mama Celeste pizza commercial. Abundanza.
I was going to ask you what the first gig was. So that was actually your first professional gig?
I think that was, yeah. I got a part in The New Little Rascals with Norman Lear, which never really made it to air, but it spawned the show Different Strokes.
No way.
Yeah, Todd Bridges.
What you talking about, Willis?
And Gary Coleman were both on the show, as I recall. And, I was like 8 years old. And the show just wasn't working, but those two kids really stood out, and so they got Different Strokes. So,
wow, that's very cool. Very cool. But come on, Annie, and was that the original, the first touring production in Los Angeles?
It was, yeah. So, they had the Broadway cast that was still on Broadway at that time, and we were the first touring group that was going out.
Little technical difficulty, but we're back at it here. But yeah, all right. So we were talking. So you started young. We were talking about your first gig. Now that first gig, was that a pizza commercial?
It was, yeah. It was a frozen pizza, Mama Celeste pizza. I think you can still find it, but they don't seem to advertise for it anymore.
Mama Celeste pizza was the first. And how old were you when you did that commercial?
I think I was 7 or 8.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
7 or 8 with the Mama Celeste. So that pizza is not around. Is that pizza still around?
I really don't know. I feel like I've seen it, but maybe not.
But maybe, well, you never know. and then the LA touring production of Annie.
Yes.
How old were you, and what was that audition process like, getting that?
So I was 10 years old, and I had actually never seen the show. I actually never went to New York until I was like 40-something years old. But everybody that we knew had talked to my parents or me and said, "You're going to audition for Annie, right? They're coming to town. You're going to audition, right? Right?" And so my brother and sister had just gotten done doing Annie Get Your Gun with Debbie Reynolds and Gavin MacLeod. And they had toured in San Francisco and then come back to the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. And so when when we started talking to my mom about it, she was like, "Oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna sit in another green room that's beige for the rest of my life. You can't make me do it."
Not gonna do it.
And so I was on my knees, sobbing, begging, "Please, Mom, please let me go. I want to audition." And my brother, who was 15 at the time, looked at my mother and said, "Mom, it's her destiny. You can't deny her destiny." And my mom was like, "Oh, dear Mother of God."
What mom could say no to that?
Right? Like destiny. Come on, man.
I mean, and not just you, but your brother. Mom, it's her destiny.
Yeah.
How can you deny her?
So they did take me to the audition. The original one was pretty much an all-day affair. They apparently had 2,000 girls show up to audition.
Oh, wow.
And when they do those kind of auditions, for the most part, you walk in and you say your name, your age, and then you sing 16 bars. Which means that you can usually get to the chorus before they cut you off. And so, we were watching girl after girl go in and get cut off and walk out again. And every single one of them was singing Tomorrow or...
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what did you sing?
Or Hard Knock Life. Depending on how old they were, if they wanted the Annie part, they were singing Tomorrow. So my sister goes in and she's literally the first person that hasn't sung one of the songs from Annie. And they let her sing the entire song. And everybody outside was like, "What in the world?" So then I walk in, and I didn't do a song from Annie either. And they let me do my entire song.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
And then the guy who was the producer of the show got up and walked out the door after me. And we were told right then and there if we had a callback or not. And so I had gotten my little callback slip, and so later on in the day we went back and sang again and met them again, and then we were called back for a final audition, except that I was called and asked to meet with Martin, just the two of us at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. And that was the first time that I sang one of the songs from Tomorrow, or from the show. And what I sang was actually Maybe, which of the two songs is actually my favorite.
Maybe. Okay. I'm trying to get that in my head, but I'm not familiar with Maybe. You're going to have to help me.
Maybe far away, or maybe real nearby.
I see why you got it. Okay. Nice.
Sorry
to put you on the spot, but I'm like, I want to hear that. I was like,
sing a little bit,
Yeah, well, just a little, yeah. If I had a big bucket and put all the notes in there, I don't think I could carry them down the street. But I mean, maybe. That's actually one of my challenges, in life. I want to feel comfortable and get up and sing, but we'll see one of these days. So do you think if you'd started went in there and done Tomorrow or Hard Knock Life, I mean, you think that would have made a difference?
I don't know. I think they probably would have cut me off like they did everybody else, because, dear Lord, they heard the songs 2,000 times. Mm-hmm. Every little girl that walked in sang one of those two songs, which was the reason why I never did a song from the show, because it was annoying for me to hear.
Yeah, okay.
And I wasn't sitting in the room. I was just sitting outside. And so I always chose something that wasn't from the show to sing. I would usually know the show tunes. Mm-hmm. It just wouldn't be my audition piece. I
Interesting.
actually did a song by Rosemarie, who Rosemarie was in the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I got to
Great
meet
show.
her. And when I met her, somebody had made a comment about how I wouldn't know who they were. And I was like, "You're Rosemarie. You sang Come Out Wherever You Are." And she was like,
Oh.
"What? How do you know that song?" And I said,
Who is this? Who is this kid
"That
here?
was my audition song for Annie." So my autograph from her says, "Stop singing my song."
How cool is that?
It's pretty cool.
How cool is that?
It's pretty cool.
Not only you get that autograph, but that she would like stop singing my song. I mean, it's like, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, so was that? I mean, so you went around to several different cities performing with the group. I mean, was that they toured around? I mean, how many different places did you go?
So we went to San Francisco for 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then we came back to the Schubert Theater, which is no longer in existence, sadly.
Bummer.
And we were there for the rest of the year that I did the
Okay.
show.
Okay, so San Francisco and then back to LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So so a full year's worth of shows. I mean, how many shows is that? Gosh, have you taken stock?
So I didn't take a week off during the show. And there's 8 shows a week. And you sing
8 shows a week.
Yeah, yeah. You sing Tomorrow 4 times during each show.
You were putting in some hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were 8. How old were you again?
By that point I was 10 and 11.
10 and 11. That's still 10 and 11.
Yeah, and my dog's trying to get in at the door in case anybody's
all right.
wondering.
Mine would
Knock
be
it
all
off.
over if I let him in. And maybe at some point I'll let him in just so you can meet him.
So by the time you're done, you've sung the song 2,000 to 3,000 times at the end of a year. So
Well, I mean, some serious hours. So I mean, that was all day. Did you go to school during the day, or
we
did you?
did. We have
Okay.
whenever you're doing a movie or anything like that, you have an on-set tutor.
Mm-hmm.
So you get your books from your school and you bring them with you, and the tutor is there to help
Okay.
us, keep on track. Yeah, so it was a really fun. For the most part, it was a really fun experience, and I'm super proud that I did it, and that I had strep throat and a sprained ankle and laryngitis and food poisoning and all kinds of things during the run, and I showed up on stage. The show must go on.
Yeah. Theater people, and I think musical theater people. I mean, that's. I have a lot of respect because that's a lot of work.
It is.
I don't. I'm assuming early on all the memorization. I mean, at some point, do you ever worry about like, you've got it so memorized that you just skip past something or move too fast?
I never did that. But sometimes you draw a blank and
Holy cow.
I was 9 months into the show the first time I made a mistake. Apparently they had
there's bound to be something, right?
well,
There's bound to be something.
Yeah, but I had learned very early on that I needed to know the entire show. I needed to know everybody else's lines before I learned my own, so that when somebody else made a mistake, I knew how to cover it. Because most of the time when somebody makes a mistake, you can't just say your line. Like, you have to make it all make sense.
You got to fill in the gap.
You've got to fill in the gaps. One time I was doing the Unsinkable Molly Brown, and it was the end of Act One, and the Monsignor comes in and tells Molly that what she and Johnny need to do is go off to Europe. And because the Europeans love the nouveau riche, which is what puts her on the Titanic at the end of the show,
okay.
right?
Okay.
They have to get to Europe. And the Monsignor didn't show up on stage. He just didn't ever show up.
Oh.
And I get out on stage
What the
and
heck?
I'm like, Johnny, where's the Monsignor? And he goes, oh, he's at the outhouse. And I'm like, okay, then. And so, you know, we do a little patter back and forth, and I realized he wasn't going to be there. And so I had to restructure everything that he said in order to get us to Europe so that we could get on the Titanic.
Holy cow. Holy cow. That is where improv meets the theater right there.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Oh
And-
my gosh.
and-
I bet that was so much fun, and I bet you were terrified, but you
For it's funny because I do well in those moments,
oh.
and it is part of the joy and the fun of live theater are those moments that are terrifying in the moment, but when it's all said and done, it's a great story.
Exactly. I too love moments like that when you're like, when you endure through something or overcome something like that.
Yeah.
That is great.
Yeah.
I love that story. That was very Peppermint Patty-esque of you.
To take charge.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to stick the landing no matter what. That show will go on.
Right.
That show will go
Yeah.
on. So, so I have to ask, favorite song. I mean, I know from Annie. What was your favorite song in there, or can you not stand any of them at this point?
No. I love the show. It's so well
good.
written. It's so timeless. It seems like it doesn't matter what year it is. We can still find gems in that show that are so relevant to today. And I love that. But my favorite song is the one that that Daddy Warbucks sings to Annie when right before he asks to adopt her. And the song is called "Something Was Missing." And I'll sing a little bit.
Oh, yes.
I
wasn't gonna
made
ask
me a fortune, that fortune made 10, been headlined and profiled again and again, but something was missing, I never quite knew. That something was someone, but who? And I just, like every night, my Daddy Warbucks was a man by the name of Keen Curtis. Most people would know him from the show Cheers.
Oh, yeah.
He was the owner of the restaurant upstairs, who eventually ends up married to Carla in the show. And they're complete, utter opposites. It's very funny. But he had the most beautiful voice, and I swear I would cry every night just listening to him. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. So, did I see right? There was a reunion of Annie's, or an Annie get-together, right? It was an Annie Jamboree. It was an Annie Jamboree.
An Annie Jamboree.
I'm coining that right now.
Inside Edition brought us all together out in New York. It was such a great time. I think that was my second trip to New York. I had gone out maybe the year before. So I was really happy to get to go out there and see some of the girls that I knew and others that I had never met. So it was a lot of fun.
That sounds like it was really cool. And in the clip that I caught, I mean, it looked like, I mean, you guys just had a great time. And
Yeah.
I imagine there was a lot of reminiscing and talk about similar experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was, so you had, and was it all theatrical Annies, or was it also some that had played on screen?
I don't think any of the screen actors were there.
So all theatrical, very cool.
All theatrical.
So you all had that same, experience
Yeah.
of, playing that character and singing those songs
Yeah.
for, months and months and months.
Yeah.
I have to admire, to be able to keep that energy from the first show to the last show. I mean, that takes some work.
Well, every night when you do a show is different. There's a different audience. There's a different feel. So it becomes a different experience every night. I don't think I ever stood backstage with my bucket in hand and didn't feel those butterflies of excitement to, walk out on stage. So yeah, theater is a whole different animal from doing movies or doing voiceovers. So, and they each really have a special place, as far as I'm concerned, in how they feel, and how they work, and they're each so different and so unique, and I've loved all of it.
Oh, yeah. So I imagine in theater, I mean, you get almost instant feedback. You can feel the energy from the audience,
Yes.
whereas in film, it may be years before you get any feedback, if any, really. I mean,
Well, yeah, sometimes. Although there have been other times where I've gotten immediate feedback.
oh,
I did a movie called Student Exchange, and
do tell.
they had me in a leotard, a pink leotard, and a tutu, and ballet slippers. And when I had gone for the audition, they asked me if I could sing, and I said, "Well, yeah, sure." And I said, "Would you like me to sing well, or would you like me to sing bad?" And they went, "Oh, let's see bad."
Oh, no.
And
You
so,
can't throw that out there. You're going to have to do this one. All right, I got to hear bad. What?
if they could see me now, that little gang of mine, I'm eating fancy chow and drinking fancy wine. I'd like those to see for a fact.
You made me snort.
I heard that. So I get up on stage, and I'm supposed to be the background, right?
Yeah.
And so these four kids are sitting there, and they're trying to have a conversation, and I start singing, and they all stop and turn around and look at me like, "Oh dear God, what is that?" And they're like, cut. Okay, you guys, you're not supposed to be laughing in this. And so they kept trying to do it, and this one kid was just finally like, I can't do it. I can't. And I was like, "Well, would it help if I just sang it, well for you?" And then he was like, "Oh yeah, that would be great." If they could see me now, that little gang of mine. And all of a sudden he turns around like, "Oh my God, you can sing." And they were like, "Okay, can we please get this scene done?"
Jiminy Christmas.
Yeah, they finally had me not sing at all because it was just too distracting for everybody.
Well, let's do some ADR. Let's do it later. So just look like you're singing, but don't sing.
Yep,
and then we'll bring you in and you can sing.
That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Oh, man, that is too good. That is too good.
Is they cut the entire scene out, so they didn't show it at all. So I have no proof that I did it. Just, the occasional checks.
Just a great story.
But it's a great story.
It is a great story. Holy cow. So we might as well while we're on movies. Okay, so I mean, you didn't sing in this one, but so Party Line.
Party
And
Line.
Let me set. So Party Line is a 1988 slasher, and it is a slasher in every sense of the word. Yep. So the film, a well-off brother and sister with some serious mommy daddy issues.
You think?
Just they lure unfaithful people to a murderous trap. So it's a rather interesting plot. But they find the primary way of finding their prey is through a party line, which for most people, I mean, if you're not familiar with it, I mean, it was a phone number you called in on, and everyone was connected in one big conference call, and it was meant for adults only.
Yes.
But young teenage Jennifer, the explorer, would call in because she was a curious teen.
Yes.
Yeah, curious teen, but she does help save the day.
Spoiler
alert!
I do help save the day. I get to go to the police and tell them what I know, and I end up in the final scenes helping them to know who the bad guy is, and that was a really amazing cast. It was a lot of fun to do. It's your typical 80s direct to DVD kind of, actually VHS. I don't even think they had DVDs then. But considering the cast, I mean, it should have gotten a release, I feel like, because it was Leif Garrett and Richard Hatch and Richard Roundtree, and just like you just checked the box of everybody that you knew in this cast except for me.
No. But Patricia Patts is a big check in the box there. Come on.
Thank you.
In my book for sure, and in the world. So yeah, I mean that. So Richard Hatch, Sean Weatherly was the female lead, right?
Yep.
Leif Garrett, Greta Blackburn, and you.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a lot of scenes in that film.
I did, but we had a really short film time for that.
That's what I was going to ask you.
It was a pretty small budget, all things considered, and so we did it pretty quickly. I want to say it was maybe 3 weeks that I worked on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, 3 weeks for you're pretty much. I mean, you were a lead role. I mean,
yes.
You had a lot. Well, you had a lot of scenes in that, especially with you and I'm trying to remember your best friend's name. What was her name in the movie? But
Sarah.
Maybe we'll call her Sarah, and then I'll figure out later. but you definitely were the good friend. I mean, you're like, no, you go on home, I'll cover for you, I'll take the rap. But,
yeah.
So, being one of the only teens on the set of an adult thriller, I mean, what was that experience? I mean, was there?
Well,
were they real like?
I was 18.
You were okay. I was going to ask you that. Okay, so you were 18.
I was 18 by that point. Yeah.
Okay.
I worked a lot that year because I did look much younger than my actual age, and so I did a lot of work because then they don't have to have somebody on set. You don't have to have 3 hours a day for school. You don't.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. And when you snuck into the lounge, you definitely did a good job of looking. I was like, oh, she looks a lot older there. She doesn't look 16 anymore. No, it's because you really aren't 16. That's
well,
great.
Yeah,
that was perfect.
But they worked hard to make me look as old as I did because I just look younger. I still get people don't believe that I'm the age that I am. So, which is great once you get older.
You're as young as you feel in your mind, young as you
right. And sometimes I feel 98.
Yeah.
And
I,
sometimes I feel 6. Just
I, I,
nothing in between.
I, mentally, I'm stuck between 9 and 12. I'm right there. I don't think I'll ever transition past it, as evidence to the room around me. So, you know, all right. Richard Hatch. I mean, those who don't know who Richard Hatch is, I mean, the original Apollo from the '78 Battlestar Galactica. I
Yep.
mean, at the time, he was, about as big as it gets as far as
Yeah. Yeah.
male lead. So
Yeah.
what was he like? I mean, you guys had a lot of scenes together, so you
We
spent some time
we
together.
did. Just as down to earth and nice as he could possibly be. We didn't like hang out. There was a pretty big age gap between us. But it just kind and generous and yeah, the whole thing was just a great experience. Leif Garrett too. There were several days that we worked together, um, even though I was sort of in the background of what was going on. I was there for it, and he was funny and charming and kind, and didn't pull a diva thing. So yeah, it was a really great cast.
That's so great to hear.
Yeah,
I love hearing stories like that about actors. I
yeah,
mean, they're just great, upstanding people. Love that. Love that. So, and Jennifer, she was the cheese or the bait for the trap. I mean, she's what brought it all to a close. So I love that you got to play that part in the film.
yeah, yeah. It was
Now,
really
are
fun.
you a big fan of thrillers? I mean, you
Um, I don't mind thrillers. I have way too much of an imagination for actual horror movies.
yeah.
The only one I've ever watched was Halloween, and then I didn't
Mm.
sleep for 2 weeks.
I
So I decided at that point, and I was probably 16 or 17 when I saw it, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't think I
Yep.
need to watch those anymore. Which is funny because I went on to do this, slasher movie, um, which isn't quite the same thing, but I yeah, I think I would be able to do a horror movie. I just don't think I could watch it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm more horror comedy than straight up horror, especially.
Somebody else mentioned that the other day, and they were saying that like, what was the movie with Gizmo, where they
Oh, Gremlins.
Gremlins? That
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a
yeah.
that's a horror comedy, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, yeah, I
yeah,
guess it
yeah, yeah,
is.
yeah.
I had just
It
never
totally.
thought of it that way.
Now I've got to say those guys kept me up at night. I mean that those when you fed them after midnight, holy crap, those things were
Right?
mean and nasty, and I had some I had some nightmares over that stuff. So yeah,
Funny
thanks for
story.
bringing that
I
up.
know, right? Funny story. Brad Keston, who is
Uh-huh.
one of the Charlie Browns,
Uh,
was the voices for all of those characters other than
no way.
Gizmo. And he's not credited in the movie.
Ah,
But apparently he was shown pictures of what the character would be, and then he'd be like, "Oh, well, how about?"
mm.
And so that's all him.
Oh,
Yeah.
how much fun is that? How much fun is that? Well, perfect segue. I mean, so voiceover. We can't not jump to Peppermint Patty. I mean, so you played the voice for 3 years, is that right?
Yeah, but it's different with cartoons, especially
Mm-hmm.
back then, because they would record us, and then once they had the recording, they would start drawing.
Yeah.
And back in the day, each piece of film had to be drawn by hand. And they would, flip up the pieces of paper to make sure that the animation was smooth. Nowadays it's all done on a computer, and
Yeah, yeah.
you can just ask AI to make you something.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
kind of cool and kind of scary all at the same
Yeah, I'm
time.
right there with you on that.
Yeah,
Right there.
yeah. So it was a completely different thing back in the day, and you did have to wait for them to get it done, and it would take months and months. So
Mm.
I did two specials: "You're the Greatest, Charlie Brown," and "She's a Good Skate, Charlie Brown," and then I did the Paramount feature film "Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, and Don't Come Back."
That's a good film, The Bon Voyage.
Yeah.
Watched that with my 4-month-old granddaughter just yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, and she thoroughly loved it. She had nothing bad to say about it. Only good words. Well, there weren't any words, but still.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
right, right.
it was a lot of fun. So, do I have this right? Charles saw you as Annie and decided that's the. I mean, was he like, "That's my Peppermint Patty"? I mean, how did that go?
Yeah, apparently that was pretty much it. So he came to see the show one night, and Lee Mendelson, who was the producer, came to see it another night, and they called each other and said, "Hey, wanted you to know I've got our next Patty." And the other one was like, "No, no, no, no. I found our next Patty." And no, no, wait till you hear. No,
No,
no.
you got to hear this.
And they were arguing over me. So,
Oh, that is such a great story.
yeah.
That is such a great story. They no, I've got the gal. No,
Yeah.
I've got her. I've got the gal.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
holy cow.
so they reached out to my people. I didn't even know I had people back then, but apparently I had people, and they asked me to play the part. And
And
I was in San Francisco at that point, and their studio was in San Jose or Burlingame or something like that. And so they sent a limousine to pick me up and drive me out, and Charles Schulz was there, and he introduced himself, and he said, "All of my friends call me Sparky, so you
okay.
are to call me Sparky."
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, yeah. And so I got to work with him a couple of times. I've got some great photographs of us together.
Mm.
And then another time I happened to be up in San Francisco, and a friend of mine got a hold of him, and he let me come over to his house and showed me his office and took me around town. And if you'll just excuse me for just a moment, I have to
Yep,
open
yeah,
the door
no.
for the dog.
We get to see the dog, yes. We'll take a brief commercial break, then come back in.
He wasn't going to stop. You want to come say hi to everybody? Come say hi.
Absolutely.
This is Sammy.
Oh, hi, Sammy. Look at Sammy. Holy cow. Oh,
Yeah,
Sammy
he's
is
my baby
so
boy.
cute.
No, stop. Sit down.
I
Stop.
promise, Sammy, I'm not that bad. I mean, I may look scary, but I'm not.
Oh goodness. So
So,
Sparky took me all around town, showed me his ice skating rink. We the sign. He told me that the sign for Snoopy's Cafe,
hmm
they had somebody hand carve it with the prices without thinking about the fact that at some point they might want to raise the price. Well,
yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't want to replace the sign, so it was still 10 cents to buy a hot chocolate there.
Wow, how cool is that?
Yeah.
That is so neat. That
Yeah.
is so neat.
And what I found really interesting once I got older and started meeting some of the other cast members is that not all the kids actually got to meet him.
Mm.
He apparently did not show up to a lot of the tapings, and so some of the kids never met him.
How special is that for you?
It was pretty special for me. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I've often thought so. Uh, I'm a geek, so I'm going to compare him a little to Gene Roddenberry. But I thought, but the two of them were really big on incorporating. I won't say it's a personal service announcement, but they were really big on, pushing the norms of society in their creation, right? So
Yes.
they wanted to push the envelope and to show people that this is the way it should be, kind of thing.
I would agree with that. The character of Peppermint Patty, um, the story that I heard was that he had a cousin who had said to him at one point, there's nobody in media that looks like me. Um,
Mm.
I don't like wearing dresses. I wear shorts and Birkenstocks. I like sports, and there's nobody that looks like me. And his response was, "Well, there will be now."
I love that.
And the story behind Franklin was that a school teacher wrote to him and said, "You don't have any representation on your show. And, I love your show, but I have these kids and they don't get to see themselves." And so he came up with Franklin. And, especially with Franklin, um, they were like, "Oh, you can't have a black child walking with Linus." Like, no.
Mm.
And he basically said, "You print it like I draw it, or I pull it. I don't
Oh,
need to do this anymore. So take it or leave it."
mm.
And it was pretty much
Yep.
what he also did with the Christmas special. They didn't want Linus to be reading passages from the Bible. But that was always such an important part of who Sparky was. That there's lots and lots of references in the strips. Um, I found one the other day that, like, you had to be a student of the Bible and actually read it to have known to put the joke together. And if you go to the Peanuts Gallery,
Okay.
I did a breakdown and showed the strip, but he it was an integral part of his life. And so and when you read his biography, it's really interesting because he knew a guy named Charlie Brown, and they all called him
Okay.
good old Charlie Brown. And all of the characters were, he would often say that they were each a part of him. um but there are points in his life that you could look at what was going on in his life and see it in the strip.
Mm.
So it was all very, very real to life, which is why I think it's still so relevant today. Um, Charlie Brown talks about depression a lot. Linus talks about anxiety. Lucy has narcissism. Um, and I think for a lot of people, those things had never really been talked about. Charlie Brown came out in the 50s. World War II had ended. Everything was, great and wonderful. And yet there were probably a lot of really depressed men who'd come back from the war. And so to be able to look at something as simple as a cartoon and be able to relate to the depression, the anxiety, you know, all the stuff that is going on, as well as the humor. I just think it's so relevant today, as much as it was back in the 50s.
Mm-hmm. I talked with Rick Stacy, a local comic creator who's done it for a long time, and I had him give me his top 5, and the Peanuts reprints are in his top 5 of must have, must read, and I think that's some of the reason why, because it's real, but it's like you said, it's got that bit of humor to it, and we just relate to it and love it, and there's hope in it as well, which I think is another good piece to it.
Yes.
There
is a sense of hope always throughout it. Even his kicking the football. He never, in 50 years, he never gets to kick the football, and yet he still tries every single time.
Never give up. I love that.
Yeah.
You mentioned your podcast. Give us the name of your podcast again.
So the podcast is the Peanuts Gallery. You can find it at all the usual places, YouTube and Apple and whatever else is out there.
Spotify,
all of those.
All the good places.
Thank you.
All the good places. And so you guys are you're talking about everything about Peanuts, all kinds of, anything and everything. I caught you guys talked about Bon Voyage, and you got on to Marcy, and Marcy going off on the driver. So there was the car wreck, right? Well, there's actually 2 car wrecks.
Yeah.
And Marcy, little mild mannered, Marcy. I think she's French at heart. I have a feeling she's French at heart.
Right. Yeah.
But she jumps out of the sunroof, and she's like letting them have it. But we don't know what she's saying, because she's saying it in French.
Yes. But did
you guys ever figure it out?
The hand signals are sort of universal.
Okay. We get Well, she did. Yeah. Exactly. Snoopy, he was definitely.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is that's actually not from Bon Voyage, although that is a bit in Bon Voyage.
Mm-hmm.
But the Carrie, my co-host, and I did a show where we talked about one of the specials. It's a Memorial Day special, and they continue that.
Oh, okay. So it was a continuation.
It's a continuation.
So they brought the car wreck back.
Yes, they brought the continuation. Car wreck back. But the funny thing
is, it's in both specials.
It was done like 3 or 4 years later than Bon Voyage, so I'm actually not in it. And Brad Keston is. So it's like full circle. But there's so many little fun moments. My favorite 5 minutes of cinema of all time is Snoopy in the bar.
Yeah.
In Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown. He's knocking back root beers.
Root beers, like no one's business, man.
Right? And
like no one's business.
The music is playing, and it's all the World War II music. Mm-hmm. And, to some of it he's dancing, and some of it he's crying.
Yeah, he's
all over the place. And it's so Snoopy and so fantastic.
He is in tune with the music.
Yeah.
He is a musical barometer. I mean, whatever that beat is laying across, he is feeling it 100%.
Yeah.
I love that part of it. So you guys mentioned in your in that episode that Charles was actually stationed in Paris, so that's where a lot of the ideas from the story came from.
Yes. Yeah. He was there during World War II. In this tiny little French town, and there was a little bar that he would go to and listen to music, and they stayed in a chateau while they were there that they had sort of, I guess, taken over or been given, or it was empty, I don't know. So there's lots of little pieces of Bon Voyage that are from his past. And again, he did that over and over and over again with the strip. It was just so representative of his life. And I think that's such a cool part of what he did.
I'm gonna have to look up the his book. So it was an autobiography.
Yeah, yeah.
Did someone? I'm assuming someone else wrote it about him,
They
or was
did.
it?
They did.
Okay.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
believe it was written after he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But they got to talk to, his wife and people he knew, and so it's really, it's a great biography. I really enjoyed reading it.
Well, I encourage everyone to get out and check out your podcast because it was a
Thank
great
you.
episode, especially if you love peanuts. Even if if you've never seen peanuts before, it's still interesting. I
Thanks.
just watched Bon Voyage and then went and found that and listened to that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. We've had some really fun guests on. Allison Arngrim, who was Nellie Olson,
oh no way.
came on, and the topic was Nellie versus Lucy, who was the worst narcissist.
That's a throwdown and a half. Holy cow!
And Allison is hilarious. If you've never seen her live show, you have to track her down and you have to go
Okay.
see it. She is so funny and so wonderful a person, and she jumped at the chance to be able to come on the show, which I really appreciate. And it's a fantastic topic, because how often do you get to talk about narcissism and have it be funny?
Oh, love that. Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to look for that episode
Please
now.
do.
All right.
Please
I'm gonna
do.
go back and check that one out. Go back and check that one. All right. So a few Peppermint Patty questions.
Yes.
I mean, for her directly. I mean, so what is the scoop with Charlie Brown? I mean, is it ever going to happen?
Well, he's kind of sweet on me.
I mean, I know that. Yeah. I mean, what's the holdup?
Well, it's Chuck. Chuck is the problem, and I laughingly say that if they had grown up, I think what would have happened was that Peppermint Patty and Chuck would have gotten married.
Okay.
Mostly because he would never get up the nerve to ask the little redheaded girl out. And so he would never get the nerve to ask any woman out. And, Peppermint Patty was not your typical, femme fatale. And so I think one day she would have shown up at Chuck's place and been like, hey, so Saturday, you and I are going to the courthouse and we're going to get married. Wear something
We're gonna
other
quit
than
fooling around, Chuck.
wear something other than that striped shirt. And we're going to get married and you're going to move in with me. Okay, Chuck? All right. I'll see you there, 10 o'clock. And he would have been like, well, okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly.
And I think he would have been like a used car salesman, and she would have been the football coach at the local high school. Always wanted to go pro, but she's a girl, so she wouldn't have been able to.
Perfect.
They would have had a football team of kids, because that's what she would have wanted, was a football team.
Mm-hmm. So Peppermint Patty Brown.
Peppermint Patty Brown. Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. I love it. You're from the mouth of Peppermint Patty Brown. All right. So is there anything that sandals don't go with?
No. Sandals are
why
great.
would they go with everything,
Yeah.
right?
Except maybe snow. But I think she
Well,
wore
I
them
mean-
even in the snow.
We're gonna have to research that to find out. I mean, was there ever? I did a little searching. I don't think there was ever an episode where she wasn't wearing sandals.
I don't think there was. There were some times when he had her in a dress for like dances and things like that. But other than that, she was always in her shorts and Birkenstocks.
Shorts and Birkenstocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did find a reference or a article somewhere that mentioned that the sandals were a gift from her father, and so she cherished them and always wore them.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
don't know if that's know if that's in a strip somewhere or what. but-
I think it is. And her father. So she's she doesn't have a mother, and they never explain why she doesn't have a mother. But she's being raised by her single dad. And apparently part of why she's so tired all the time at school is that he works a second shift. And so she waits for him to come home at night. And then she gets up early in the morning to go ice skating. So, so she doesn't get a whole lot of sleep. But he refers to her as his special gem, which
A special gem.
I always thought was just so precious and sweet.
Tell me you have that shirt. It just says special gem.
I do not have that shirt.
Oh,
Do
you
they
need
have
one.
that shirt?
Well, I just make it.
Okay, I will make it.
Special
I will
gem.
make it.
Anyone who knows Peanuts lore will know what it means, right?
Exactly.
And you've got to wear sandals when you're wearing the shirt.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a must. It's a must. So that leads right in. I mean, so you go to you're doing cons, right? I mean, you go to conventions.
I do. I started doing well. I booked my first one in 2019 for March of 2020.
Perfect, right?
Yeah, that one didn't happen.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Perfect.
I think finally, like 18 months later, I went to it. That was Colossal Con, which if you've never been to Colossal Con, it's
No.
whoo. It's
Is it colossal?
It is. Well, they have it at the Kalahari hotels, and so there's a water park at each of them. So everybody comes not only with their cosplay, but with their water cosplay.
Water cosplay. I did not know there was a water cosplay.
Yes,
Okay. What?
It's amazing.
What's the best water cosplay you saw? I mean, was it like Aquaman or what? I mean, what is it? SpongeBob?
I have evidence. It stays on my phone forever. But somebody came as like King Tut.
Okay.
In a gold lame Speedo.
Oh, okay.
With the snake on his.
Okay, had the headdress and everything.
And that was it.
So the gold Speedo and the headdress.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you snapped a picture of that because why not?
I did.
That's my screensaver. Oh my gosh.
The Scarlet Witch, one of the girls came walking through in a one-piece bathing suit with the cape and the headpiece and so like and then the next day you'd see them in a completely different cosplay. Like some of these people came in with 4 different outfits plus 4 different wet outfits.
Hey, cosplayers are no joke.
They
don't mess around.
Joke. They are no joke. I love it. I love when people do cosplay.
I love cons.
I love meeting people who do it. I love the creativity of it. And I love that cons are so inclusive.
Mm-hmm. I think that's my favorite thing.
For everyone, you don't have to be famous to show up and have people be like, "Oh my gosh, I want to take a picture with you." You know.
Exactly.
And I just love the atmosphere and how kind everybody always seems to be. And I've heard stories of whatever, but for the most part, it's just always such an inclusive group of fun, creative people. And I just adore it. I do.
I've not been to one that wasn't exactly what you described.
Yeah.
I mean, it's supportive and inclusive. I mean, those are the 2 key elements. I mean, no matter where you're at in your cosplay skills level, everyone's like, "Oh, that is so great." Everyone is just, they're just supportive.
Yeah.
And then,
and I've even seen people that just showed up in like something that resembled it, like for instance, I've seen people in a yellow sweatshirt and they took tape to make the squiggly line, right?
Did they shave their head?
And well, no, they were already bald.
Oh, perfect.
But
commitment.
But right. But people were just as enthusiastic about a cosplay. I still call them costumes. That was as simple as that and as easy to do as they are for the guy who has the 3D printer and makes the whole thing. And you'll see the guy, the Iron Man who, has the 3D printer and all of that. And he'll see somebody else who just bought a $15 costume and he'll be like, dude, let's take a picture.
Exactly.
I just love it, So, and it's fun for me to get out and in a lot of cases I've gotten to see people that I haven't seen in 30 years or 40 years, which is great fun. And the other thing is that I know how proud my mom would be that I was out doing something so fun and creative again, because I spent a lot of years working a real job and being a quote unquote normal person, and my mother would always be like, I don't understand that, Patricia, you were a star. And I'm like, oh dear God, Mom. So, but my mom would be so proud of me for going out and doing it and having the podcast and everything else that I've been doing the last few years. So it always brings up memories for me when I'm at a show.
Yeah, I absolutely love cons. I love cons. So what's the craziest thing that someone's had you sign?
I haven't really had anybody do anything too crazy.
If I was going to guess, I was going to say it was going to be a pair of sandals, but
no.
No one's done that yet. Holy cow! Okay,
nobody.
You have to start something. Just buy some sandals, have them out on the table.
No, it's usually Funko Pops.
Okay.
The Peppermint Patty ones are at this point only vaulted ones. Although it is the 75th year of Peanuts in 2025. And so I'm really hoping that Funko will come out with a new set.
Ooh, maybe. If not, just get you a sandal line going. Just start some sandals, and then the shirt with the gem on there, right?
Right. Right.
Well,
most of the time it's just
you can bring that under your own IP. That's like,
Most of the time it's just pictures that, people want that are signed and I'm thrilled.
Well, when I come to see you, I'm bringing sandals. That's all there is to it. I'm bringing sandals. And I'm not going to lie, they may be ones I've worn.
All right. Just
No.
Can you have them clean, please, before you bring them to me?
There'll be new ones. So do you have any cons coming up?
I do. I have Albuquerque Comic Con, January 17th through the 19th in Albuquerque. And I've been to that one before. It's loads of fun. It's a really big one. They bring in a lot of really great people.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to get together with some people. Part of the reason why I started the podcast was I would go to shows and people would stop me, other stars, a lot of artists would stop me and be like, oh, the first thing I ever drew was Snoopy. And I loved the Peanuts when I was growing up, and I used to copy it all the time. And I'm the artist I am today because of what Schulz put out all those years ago. And so many people would come up and say, oh, I so relate to Charlie Brown, or I so relate to Linus. So that's really where the idea for the podcast came was going to these shows and talking to so many people. So, but yeah, I have like 3 or 4 things set up for 2025, which I'm excited about. And I'm talking to more people every day and having fun with my agent. Okay, so I'm going to explain that.
Okay, all right. Well,
So-
if you weren't, we're gonna, drag it out of you.
Well, so I had a conversation with somebody, and they were like, "Well, sometimes shows don't want to work with individual acts because it's just too much time and energy and going back and forth." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I posted on my Patricia Patts voice actor Facebook page that if anybody wanted me to have an agent, I could make one up. Her name was Stella. She was a heavy smoker from New Jersey. And, oddly, she had the same phone number as me, but that was my agent. And I got such a big response from it that I was like, well, okay, I'll put a wig on and I'll play Stella.
Nice.
And it's got like 600 views already.
Holy crap.
And it's only been out for like a week.
Look at you cosplaying Stella.
I know, right? And then the funniest thing was I had 2 very dear friends reach out to me and go, "Oh my God, it was halfway through before I realized who it was."
I was about to switch agents. Good call.
So I have some other Stella things coming up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just, I just am at a point. I'm done adulting. I'm 57,
Yeah.
and I've adulted for a really, really long time, and I just want to have some fun.
Absolutely. Amen. Amen.
I tell people when they come up to me at the booth and they're like, "Yeah, I want to be an actor." I get a lot of kids that come up, and I always just say, you have the most magical thing in the world that you carry around with you, that you can make an entire movie. Find your people. Find the kid that wants to be a director. Find the kid that wants to be a writer. Find the kids that are actors or musicians, and they'll write a song for your movie, and just do it. And let me tell you, it's going to be terrible. It will.
Right.
But you're going to learn, and then do another one, and do another one, and keep doing it. Do it for the love of it. Now, at some point, you got to monetize it, because that's just the way the world works. But, you hear the story of George Lucas. He did it in his garage. Now, his family gave him some money. They had a garage. He had, the equipment. He had stuff that some other people might not have. But he just did it. And people turned him down. People told him it was a stupid idea. And he just kept plugging forward. And he did it. And look at what it turned into. Because he didn't give up. Which, again, goes back to that level of hope that Charlie Brown had. Of he was going to kick that ball at some point. And so I just want to have fun. I want to go to Comic-Cons and meet people and hang out and make silly videos online. And if I never make a dime off of any of it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because I'm having fun. and
Oh,
what's
Patricia.
the point of life if you're not having fun?
Absolutely.
Exactly. What's the point?
Yeah. Exactly. If you're not having fun, you need to shift gears and find the fun lane.
Yeah.
Because life is too short. I mean, let's enjoy it.
Let's enjoy it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So where can everyone follow you and find out about all the fun stuff? I mean, is Facebook the best place? Instagram?
Probably Facebook is the best place to go.
Okay.
I have a
And,
couple of different Facebook pages.
mm-hmm.
There is
Yeah,
Patricia Patts, voice actor,
mm-hmm.
which is a profile page, so I would have to friend you. But then
Yeah.
I also have Patricia Patts, voice actor for Peppermint Patty, which you can just follow. There's also the Peanuts Gallery, so you can keep up
Okay.
on that. And then the best place I think to go and watch the Peanuts Gallery is on YouTube, which is YouTube at the Peanuts Gallery.
Okay.
Um, and just follow me that way. I have a website. I need to do some updates on it.
All right. So the important question is where do potential con owners get a hold of Stella to get you out to a con?
You know what? Facebook is really the best way. Just DM me, and then I'll send
Yeah.
you my phone number, and I'll get back to you. So yeah,
Perfect.
or
Perfect.
Stella will
Stella will. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Stella will get
Let's
back to
let's
you on her flip phone.
got one of them mobile phones. Oh my gosh. Patricia, this has been so much fun. I
It's been
bet I
fun.
bet we could sit and talk all night.
I've told you
Uh,
stories I haven't told anybody.
oh, I love that. I love that. Well, my wife always says, "Man, you can just talk all day about anything and everything," and you just so I
I
mean that's why I love doing this. I meet so many people,
Yeah,
and I enjoy every minute of it.
yeah.
So you truly are a gem. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for your time.
Thank you.
I
I had a
appreciate you.
blast. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks.
Okay.